Hey, it's Obi Melafano, former safety from UConn, and you're listening on the Fin Side.
It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the Fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the Fin Side. As we approach NFL draft season, we're going to review the safeties here today with Ian Wharton. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, Spreaker, and subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Looking at this safety class, kind of very similar to last week when we talked with Ian about the cornerbacks. Very deep class with a couple of guys here at the top. Malik Hooker and Jamal Adams expected to be top 10, if not top 5 picks in the draft. Then after that, we start to see kind of a cluster afterward with safeties 3 through 10. So, Ian, looking at those two top guys, probably not a big consideration for the Dolphins, but Jamal Adams and Malik Hooker, you're a big Ohio State fan where Malik Hooker went to school. Is this accurate? Do you think these guys should be in the top 10 or the top 5?
Well, I definitely think Hooker should be, in the sense that it's extremely difficult to find the type of safety that can literally transform your secondary. What you can run with Hooker is similar to what Earl Thomas did for the Seattle Seahawks, and it allows your defensive coordinator to really do whatever he wants on that end of things, and it's so beneficial to your short passing game as well as your deep passing game, because you can add an extra linebacker or an extra safety in the box while still having that deep protection. So I think he's worth it. Jamal Adams, I really like him as a player. I think he's very good at everything, but not great necessarily at anything. And so to me, I don't think he's going to be an elite player. I think he's a first-round talent. I think ideally, actually, he would go close to where Miami's picking, but he's going to be pushed up a little bit. I know the NFL likes him probably a little bit more than me, but I think he's a very solid player, and he'll probably be a guy that's going to be a good starter for a decade. But top 5, top 10 is a little too rich for me.
And after you get past the first two guys, one of the more polarizing players in the draft is Jabril Peppers, the safety from Michigan. If I do a mock draft, I don't know where to put this guy. I had him in my last one going 13th to Arizona. I've had him going middle of the second round before. What's your take on Jabril Peppers? Everybody seems to have a different opinion.
Yeah, so I like Jabril Peppers. I'm not head over heels with him. I think if the expectation is for him to come in and as like a first-round pick and be an instant impact type player, I think that he's maybe a little overrated. In that sense, I don't think he's a first-round caliber player. I think he's more athlete than great football player right now, and his production really shows that. And, credit to him for bouncing around multiple positions at Michigan, but I don't think he's a versatile player. To me, versatility means being able to play multiple positions at a high level, or at least an average level. Well, he wasn't a good cornerback, which is why Michigan moved him from corner. He wasn't a good deep safety, which is why Michigan moved him from deep safety. But he was a very good linebacker type player, or like a box safety in the NFL, and so it's a similar type of position transition. And so I think that's where he's going to play in the NFL, as a strong safety, maybe like a less rangy, less talented in coverage version of Rashad Jones. And that's not really to discredit him. There's similar players in the NFL who have found success with that. I compared him to Aaron Williams of the Buffalo Bills, who's been a very successful pro. He's had a good career. I just think when the expectations is for him to be this great single high safety, almost like Malik Hooker, I think that is a little bit more of a projection than I'm willing to make. The athleticism's there, but he doesn't play that comfortably. He doesn't read offenses like that. He doesn't sniff out plays like that. It's just not who he is as a player right now. Maybe that comes in time, but generally speaking, I think that's more of an innate thing than it is something that, comes over time. I mean, Malik Hooker played safety for, 2 years at Ohio State, and he was making those plays. He was a wide receiver before that. Jabril Peppers, he can't really use that same argument because he was moving around too, but he wasn't producing like that. So to me, it's more of just of how he understands the game, and he understands the game better and closer to the line of scrimmage, which for Miami's sake is not a great value in my opinion.
We've talked a little bit about Jabril offline, so I just kind of want to ask you this here. He seems kind of more the jack of a lot, master of none, who almost might need to be a very specific schematic fit for a team like Green Bay or the Patriots. They're going to kind of move him around those couple of spots and not really use him. But maybe even over on the offensive side of the ball may end up being his best fit. I mean, where do you see all that?
Yeah, I've heard the move to running back talk, and I don't fully disagree with that. He showed actually really special things with the ball in his hands, and so I do think there is actually something to that, and then it wouldn't shock me if some teams look at him as a potential candidate to move to the offensive side of the ball. I don't hate it. It's just one of those projection things, and I'm a little bit more conservative when it comes to those type of projections than others, and that's not just with Peppers like to the other side of the ball. That's even considering like looking at other guys like Hassan Reddick, moving him from edge to linebacker. I'm still a little bit more pessimistic than most on that, even though he has the athleticism to do it. So I think it's possible. I think someone's going to value him more at safety, though, than they will at running back. And so, generally speaking, I don't know how highly you can take him at running back. I mean, 4th, 5th round, maybe 3rd round. He just doesn't really have the tape there. Although he did look explosive when he played it.
I echo your guys' sentiments there on Jabril Peppers. I mean, I've seen him in a few mock drafts going to the Dolphins at 22, and I just want to throw up. I mean, to me, he is like Rashad Jones, but you can't take a Jabril Peppers, and even though he has some common characteristics, and assume that he's going to be Rashad Jones. Rashad Jones is the best strong safety in the league, and to automatically think Peppers can be that is a stretch, and that's definitely not what you're saying on that. But yeah, it's now you combine that with you're going to have 2 Rashad Jones out there. You may have 2 big hitters, but not anybody who can cover the field well enough to justify that investment. Ian, looking at the rest of the safety class, the 2 other guys really stick out. One of them has actually been on the show before, Obi Melifonwu, the safety from Connecticut. I know we talked a little bit about him last week, maybe getting a few looks from other teams as a cornerback as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Miami was one of those teams, as I had mentioned. But if they're looking at him as a free safety, I think that would be a really potentially fun matchup with Rashad Jones. It would definitely give them a great blend of athleticism and size and speed and versatility, the ability to do multiple looks. It's a little bit difficult for me to see Miami investing that highly in a safety, just considering the other investments that they've made at the position. IAQ, obviously, he's not with the team, but they gave him more of like a mid-level contract. Nate Allen didn't get a big payday from Miami. The kid they just signed from the Rams, it's not like he got a huge contract either. So, it doesn't look like Miami wants to put a ton into that position. I think that they're more willing to be okay with just having a solid option there. But Melifonwu, if they wanted to go that decision, I'm not going to dislike it because I think what he can bring to a defense is incredibly unique and probably maybe the most valuable strength of the safety class outside of what Malik Hooker brings to the table, because his ability to match up one-on-one with tight ends and receivers, that athleticism and then the potential to play deep safety is really tantalizing. So he's a little bit of a project, and he's not really a big hitter like you'd expect for his size, but the ability to play man coverage is something that we really haven't seen from many safeties in the last decade or so.
The number 5 guy seems like everybody does agree, or most people agree, on who the top 5 safeties are. It's just a matter of where they're pegged. Budda Baker seems to be that 5th guy. A little bit on the smaller side, 5'10", 192 pounds, big playmaker at Washington, and some people think could be the best nickel back in this class. Do you see him as more of a safety or more of a nickel back that can line up there in the slot?
Yeah, I like him more as like a slot. He's basically, to me, what I would consider a slot safety. And so, his biggest strength is going to be playing man coverage and then being able to come down, eventually play the run in a sense. But, I mean, he is a smaller guy, and there's not a lot of good small safeties that really last a long time. You have to worry about their durability. That's certainly something that teams have to consider, and they will consider, and it's going to hurt his draft stock. But he is a good player, and he is one of the better playmakers in the class. He really plays the ball well. He didn't have a ton of turnovers, and to me that, again, is just going to kind of keep him out of the first-round mix. But I do think he is a solid player, and his ability to play multiple looks. He can play single high, even though he's not a turnover forcer. He's still a guy that's going to close passing windows, break up a couple passes here and there that maybe he shouldn't have been able to get to. He didn't test extremely well at the combine. That is a small concern for me. It's why I've got him in the day 2 mix as well. He wasn't really a guy that blew you away with the stats, and he didn't blow me away at the combine. So to me, that's more of a day 2 player, but he does have great tape. And I think he's going to be a really nice complementary piece for someone.
It seems you've got 4 or 5 other safeties here in some way, it's kind of pick your flavor with this group. So you've got Marcus Williams out of Utah. You've got Marcus May out of Florida, Desmond King out of Iowa, Josh Jones out of NC State, Justin Evans out of Texas A&M. Out of that group, who do you put more toward the top and more toward the bottom?
So I would actually put a guy that you didn't mention, and that just speaks to, again, the class depth. Eddie Jackson out of Alabama would probably be my top guy of that next tier of safeties. Kind of a forgotten player because of the leg injury at Alabama, but he was one of the best defensive weapons in the country the last 2 years. He literally has the experience that would be perfect for Miami. Playing cover 3, playing cover 4, playing deep, playing in half field assignments. He's decent against the run. He's not great, not stellar, and that's why he's not a round 1, maybe not even a round 2 pick. But he is a very good defender when the ball is in the air. Has really good speed. Defensive captain for that Alabama defense as well. I actually think he would be the best fit for Miami on day 2. But then it's a big mishmash after that. I would take out Marcus May off the top just because I think he's a little bit more of a safe option and more of like a rotational type safety, more of like a cover 2 type of guy. And I think those guys are a dime a dozen. That's not really anything against Marcus May. It's easy to find safeties who play that position. I think there's a handful of those guys every single year. But I really like I said, I mentioned Eddie Jackson. Marcus Williams is probably my next favorite out of that class for Miami, and Justin Evans is similar in that vein. Neither of them is great run defenders either. They're a little bit too soft in that regard. But with Rashad Jones, again, it's not going to be the priority. You're not going to be asking him to do that. You're going to be playing them towards their strengths. They're both good in cover 1, cover 3 situations. So again, covering ground while the ball is in the air. Now they're not, again, this is what's keeping them out of the top 5, top 10 first round mix as opposed to Hooker. They're not forcing a ton of turnovers off of those plays. You're not seeing the elite speed. You're not seeing the amazing closing ability, the circus catches. And that's okay. There's still value to guys who can get there and make it a very difficult catch or potentially break it up, even if they're not forcing a turnover. Those are guys that I would definitely expect to get playing time early in their careers. I would throw in Tedrick Thompson into that too from Colorado. He's actually probably the worst run defender of them all. But if you're not asking him to play run defense, then that's not going to be an issue. And that's the thing is you can do that. Like you can manipulate it to where if he's the last line of defense anyways, you were screwed to start, and someone else and probably 2 or 3 other players missed their assignment before he ever got to Tedrick Thompson or Justin Evans, especially in the secondary. So you've already failed if those guys have to make that tackle. But the rest of the guys that, Rayshon Jenkins, Marcus May, Josh Jones. Josh Jones is more of, I think, just more of like an upside guy, really fast, but very uncontrolled. He needs to kind of rework how he plays and be a little bit more efficient with his tackling. He needs to be exposed a little bit more too to more pressured coverages, and so I'm not sure he's really a great option for Miami. But if they're looking for depth on day 3, there's definitely going to be some talent there.
One thing that we've talked about on the show, and I can't remember if you and I have talked about it at this point, but Miami, they've got Timmons, they've got Kiko Alonso, so they haven't really specified what their roles are going to be. And one thought we've talked about, and I know it's starting to float its way around Twitter a little bit too, is the possibility of Miami grabbing a safety early. One like Obi is the example that I usually use, but there's a couple other guys that could fit the mold as well. And really just implementing the 4-2-5 big nickel package essentially as more of their base defense and being able to do some flexible and fun things, particularly when they get TJ McDonald back. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that scenario.
Well, we saw a lot of that last year, and it's just difficult to do. It would be great if Miami could do it, but I think you really have to look at that front 4. Now, I agree that they definitely upgraded the linebacker situation with Timmons. I think both Timmons and Kiko will be more effective because of that pairing, but you still have a massive hole at defensive tackle with Jordan Phillips. As long as he's starting, unless if he transforms who he is, he's not a good run defender. And looking at the defensive end situation, Hayes was a really nice pickup, especially for giving up essentially nothing. But, Branch isn't really giving you much in the run game. So they're defensively, before the safety position, you're going to be counting on Jones possibly as like a box safety, which I think just kind of neuters him a little bit. You would really have to get a Cam Chancellor type, I think, to to really be that extra linebacker, like that Deion Buchanan, someone who really excels in the box. And that's definitely the role. Whereas with Jones, I just worry that you'd be losing his real value, especially giving him that much money. I think you want him in coverage and roaming a little bit more than just being a guy who comes downhill. And I think it just at the current roster construction, it would leave you a little too bare against the run to sell out against the pass, because we saw how that worked last year and even the year before, but especially last year they played the 4-2-5 more often. And granted, it wasn't with the same caliber of linebackers, and the safety play will probably improve this year once McDonald comes back, especially. But still, though, it's a nice thing to use probably like 30-40% of the time, but I don't think it's going to be your go-to base defense. It's just no one's really doing that successfully.
Ian Wharton is joining us. You can follow him on Twitter at NFL Film Study. Also buy his magazine. You can find Ian Wharton's magazine in the show notes after we post this on the Fin side on the Facebook page as well. And Ian, half of the proceeds go to, tell us a little bit more about that organization again.
Yeah, Cure PSP. It's a great organization, great charity that works with individuals and helps give opportunities to individuals with neurodegenerative diseases. So, obviously, it's definitely hit close to home for me. And so I definitely recommend checking them out. They offer a lot of support, offer a lot of resources for the families of those that are suffering from that. So, yeah, like I said, 50% of all proceeds are going to go towards them after the draft concludes and start to wrap up draft sales, and really excited to make that type of donation to them.
Well, Ian, thanks again for all you do. Thanks again for joining us here tonight as we break down the safety class for the Miami Dolphins and for the rest of the NFL. And as Brian Miller used to say, if it's not on the left side and it's not on the right side, it is on the Fin side. Solo D, take us home.
It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the Fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the Fin side. Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what Brian, Cat, and Paul about.